What is up, Lee?
Not much. Just kind of getting ready for college football, and got to rep the Sooners here on Saturday, and coming off of a ridiculous Friday night. You and I were at
man.
that Geyer game, so
What a crazy game that was last night at Collins Stadium. Yeah, ridiculous Friday, ridiculous Thursday as well for a few teams. It's week 2, where I can't believe we're already 20% into teams' schedules pretty much, and got 9 more weeks of regular season left, and we're finding out some things, man. We definitely finding out some things from some teams, and definitely a lot of questions for some others. So, man, let's just get into it.
That sounds pretty good to me. I think you want to go ahead and lead things off here.
Sure, yeah, I'll go ahead and get it started. Well, welcome to the show, everybody. It's week 2 recap here for Denko Gridiron. My name is Stephen Peters. In the studio is Lee Livingston. He is technically producing as well as writing co-pilot again. I'm at home because I have that kind of power. No, got to do the family stuff, and don't want to go all the way up to Denton for this and alienate them and make them do all the things. So you got to split duties, right? Luckily, we have this wonderful StreamYard to produce the show for us and everything. So excited to get into talking about what we saw this past week, some surprises, who's up, who's down in terms of stock, and who you're buying and who you're selling. As well as some performers of the week, and just obviously college football. It was week 1. You've got your Sooners today against Arkansas State, and I've got Texas and Rice playing, so that'll be fun. Of course, the big one is TCU and Colorado. I don't know if you saw any of the
maybe.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw any of the Twitter posts from like Mike Craven at DCTF. They didn't have a depth chart provided for Colorado, so that's there's just the show with Colorado and Deion Sanders is in full force out in Fort Worth.
I love Coach Prime. I'm all about him.
I mean, yeah, to a certain extent. Then you got to remember what happened here in DFW when he tried starting 2 charter schools, and those went pretty much belly up right from the beginning.
I did not even know about that. The show is incredible.
Yeah, you don't remember the term Prime Prep? Like, it was a legit prep academy. This was mid-aughts, I think. Maybe late or in the teens or something like that, somewhere around there. But yeah, he started 2. Anywho, I don't want to get into too much of it, but two academies that went belly up.
Too shocking, but
yeah, and then went to what was he coached at Trinity Christian is what it was called, and now it's Trinity Leadership, and they got kicked out of TAPS. So that all fun stuff. Anywho, man, so yeah, news and notes for this week. A solid week for our Denko teams. They went 14-12 this week. Kind of a rough though Friday night. They started 5-0 on Thursday, headlined by Lake Dallas. Destroying Centennial, which we'll talk about later. And then last night, everybody went 9-12, punctuated by that just gut punch of a game-winning field goal by Alito in a frantic 9v1 5A versus 6A matchup. So it was pretty intense and interesting from the press box to the sideline. And then we have one more game today with Frisco Legacy taking on Oak Ridge in a rematch from last year. Teams were we starting to figure out who they are. Byron Nelson had a great win on Thursday. They're still great offensively, and their defense is still just as strong in pre-district. We'll see how that translates when it comes to district time. Liberty with a 31-0 win over Houston Second Baptist, and so they seem like they're a complete team after dominating Prestonwood last week as well. So they're off to a hot 2-0 start. We'll talk about a little bit more. Geyer, they found their quarterback, and that's one thing Coach Reed Heim was telling us last night. They have their quarterback. Did you want to add something?
Oh, no, I was just saying it definitely felt like it. I was just on Logan McLaughlin. I obviously, I think we'll dive into more of his statistics a little bit later, probably.
For sure. Yeah.
He just looked so composed throughout that game, as frantic as it was.
Mm-hmm.
And that game in particular, it obviously it felt like it got off the rails, like, because it was just an insane game, all from kind of after
The first
first
quarter.
quarter, I would say, is where it started to kind of get just insane.
Mm-hmm.
And he just delivered every time, and Alito kept making big plays, and he had to make the big throws, the big plays, and it wasn't just like he was relying on Josiah Martin the entire time or other guys to make plays. Like, he was making throws and just looked like he looked like a senior quarterback who'd been doing it from freshman year to senior year. Like, that's the kind of way he was kind of carrying himself. It was pretty impressive. And even like when we were interviewing him afterwards, you know,
well spoken, little soft spoken. I mean, he
yeah,
has that very aw shucks type of vibe about him and everything. He's like, I'm just a kid trying to play football, and I'm enjoying life, and that was great to see. Reed Heim, coach for Geyer, had a lot of positive things to say about him as well when we talked with him. So it was a fun night for sure. I honestly didn't care who won that one, just because of how exciting it was. It definitely was the best game in the area. I don't know if you've seen any Texas scores, but there was an 82-80 game between Hutto and I don't remember who they played. Liberty Hill, I think, or Liberty Hill, one of the two. And it ended up 82-80 with like a quarterback that's committed to Texas Tech, throwing over 700 yards of offense and running for another like 6 touchdowns. It was dumb. I made the tweet this morning that box score and scoring summary is going to be longer than a CVS receipt. So,
I can't even imagine how long would that game last. That's what I'm trying to imagine.
I think it probably started Thursday and then finished last night. Probably like a cricket match where it takes a week to finish. That's insane. 162 points total combined. That's just dumb. And then the last thing we're kind of starting to see is, maybe Flower Mound was a little underrated and could be a 6-6A title contender. We don't know, but they've played well their first 2 weeks, and of course, we're nothing but if knee-jerk reactionaries, and so being 2-0 and playing some pretty good teams and winning, either in close games or in blowouts, they're Brian Basil's got them, or Brazil's got them right there where they need to be early on. So Jake Watson, aka Don't Call Me Yale Erdman, is playing pretty solid. So hats off to Flower Mound in the first 2 weeks. So, kind of going next is looking at stock up. We just kind of mentioned Flower Mound. I wasn't too high on them
before we get off of Flower Mound real quick. I was just going to add on their rushing game. Unbelievable. Like last week, it was Jake Watson that did a lot. This week, combined, I think it's 240 yards roughly between the two of them, because Jake Watson did a lot of the running, but the passing game was Watson and Stadler combined for about I think it's 240 yards. Doing my little quick math here.
Yeah, 240.
Actually reading the correct 38 for this time. It's 238.
238. Yeah. So Watson.
Monster game between those two, and I think that's the impressive part here. Is last week it was a lot through the air between for the Jags, and then this week it's just so I think that's something that I like seeing, is that they're getting it done through the air, in 2 different weeks. You've won games, 2 different styles of play. So
yeah, for sure. They gave up quite a bit of offense to Lake Highlands, but it was a very much a bend but don't break type of feel, and that's kind of what we didn't see last night. It was a lot of bending and breaking for both defenses. Just happened to be who had the ball last was going to win. But Flower Mound definitely put it on Lake Highlands. They got up, 34-7 by the half, and were able to kind of coast to the win. And that's, to the strength of their as you said, the running game. 238 yards between Peyton Stadler and the quarterback Jake Watson. Watson had all 5 touchdowns. 4 on the ground and 1 in the air. So, I'm buying Flower Mound right now. Their stock is definitely up. They're one of those teams whose stock is up through 2 weeks, and it will be interesting to see where they go from here. Let's see on their schedule. They have after Lake Highlands, McKinney.
Next week. Oh, there we go. That's going to be
That's going to be a good one.
good
And we've talked each week about what we want to see the next week. That's going to be a good one. Is Flower Mound versus a ranked McKinney team, and kind of seeing where they stack up against the heavy hitters of 6A, and that'll be their right before they go into an open week or bye week, however you want to call it, and then they will get into the district. So, doing once. Go ahead.
Open up. Well, I was going to say because you mentioned the open week, they get that tough game against McKinney. They open with Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
They open with the guys with the target on their back in that particular district. The reigning district champs in 6A. In Louisville, I think we'll get into it here. If you want to go, I don't know if we want to get into it when, but Louisville coming off a loss to Highland Park.
We'll
maybe
talk
a little vulnerability there. Like I obviously I thought they were going to go in and smoke Highland Park.
Yep.
It feels like there's a chink in the armor there, and this Flower Mound team, I don't know. Maybe they can give Louisville a run for their money, man.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, and it was kind of similar last year. Louisville had a huge win over Naaman Forest, and then they lost by 14 to Highland Park at home. And then this year, it's win against Naaman Forest, and then lose by 3 to Highland Park on the road. So we'll start there. We'll start with stock down. We've already kind of talked about Flower Mound and their stock up, but stock down to me is Louisville right now. We both have these expectations that they were going to. Again, this is very reactionary after week 2, right? Things could change dramatically. Week 4 to the rest of the season, but Louisville is definitely one of the better teams in just the state in general. They're highly thought of and ranked, and have a lot of talent. We saw that Byron Ellison, he wasn't hurt, just only had very limited action last week, and was the leading rusher for the team this past week. But not that last night was a must-win for the Farmers. We wanted to see, could they be that kind of team? Could they be a dominant team that would be a tier 1 in the state when you think of North Shore, who's constantly in the championship games, Duncanville, DeSoto of last year, Sauk. These teams regularly play competition that's equal or better to them, and can they come out on the win? And that's 2 years in a row now where we've just seen Louisville is just not that team, at least early on. But we did learn some things. They didn't give up huge numbers to Highland Park. Their defense held them kind of in check to 21 points. It's just that offense could not produce. And Byron, like I said, had over 100 yards rushing, but didn't get the complementary passing game that they needed. So it'll be interesting to see what they do moving forward this coming week, and then get into district play 2 weeks after that on the 22nd. So yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on what you see from just the box score rating? I mean, obviously, we weren't at the game.
We're not there. So I mean, it's good. So for me, it's good to see obviously Byron Ellison out there playing fairly well. Like 117 yards on rushing on 18 carries. That's pretty effective. Just and I'm assuming it was fairly efficient running. Not having watched, and that maybe there were some chunk runs that he was picking up. It could have been 4 or 5 plays where he got the most of his yards. I have no idea, but I'm assuming it's, that kind of box score seems pretty solid and everything. Ethan Terrell, that's the kind of game that I kind of want from an Ethan Terrell type of quarterback. He doesn't need to throw for 70% or anything, in my opinion, because he's so athletic and he can run really well. But 14 for 30 when it comes to rushing, that's not particularly exciting to me. That's a little bit worrisome. However, I do know that in the box scores and stuff, sacks will kind of attribute to that negative rushing yardage and stuff. So I don't know, maybe he had more, and then there was some sacks involved. I'm not 100% sure. And then the last thing that kind of stood out is Warren Peck, actually. So we talked a little bit about him in our preview show. and he's the Highland Park quarterback. This is not, one of the guys that we cover, but just I think he's 6'5", 220.
Yep.
He's massive, and him rushing for 53 yards on 12 carries. Not the most efficient passing night for him. They kind of were able to stifle Peck's passing game and the overall Highland Park passing game. It wasn't super explosive offensively, as you noted, for the Scots. But Warren Peck running for 53 yards on 12 carries. I'm going to be a little curious to see how the defensive line at Louisville handles other dual threat quarterbacks, because that kind of stood out to me a little bit. If they play a true dual threat who can throw a little bit more efficiently and has been a starter in previous seasons, that might be a struggle point for them, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And I kind of push back on what you said about Ethan Terrell. I would have liked to see a better completion percentage. You're going up against, top levels of talent regularly year in and year out. Highland Park may not be a title team this year, but I would still have liked to see maybe 3 or 4 more completions and be a little bit further north of 50% than he was last night. It's encouraging that Louisville did hold Peck to only 58% complete passing, but they let Steele Tobin go off for 5 for 126. So just questions in the secondary there, what happened on that side, and then just again a little bit more proficiency in the passing game. I think that's what I noted before the season started for Louisville. It's just can Terrell be that true dual threat? We know he has an arm. It's the accuracy, it's the completion percentage, and putting up, regularly over 200, 250 yards per game through the air, as well as getting some plays on the ground. We don't need him to go off for 100 each week with Byron, but if he can, constantly show that he is that quarterback, I think that would bode well for Louisville. But, at this time, that's kind of why I feel like the stock is down. It's like we haven't seen that progression so far through 2 weeks for Ethan, and Louisville's now 1-1 again, and we'll have to knee-jerk reaction next week when it comes to their game. So another game moving on, or another team, I should say, with stock down, is going to be Aubrey and Argyle. We were really high on them moving forward, or to begin the season. We said, expect deep runs out of these two teams. I proclaimed Argyle will be one of 3 teams to win state this year out of the area. Man, I definitely was drinking the Kool-Aid off of last year, because it's been a rough go of it early on. Offense is not there. The defense can't stop anybody. Right now, I think they're giving up 46 points a game after 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's rough goings for Argyle. Same thing with Aubrey. We got shut out against a really good Anna team, but I thought they would put up something. And
the box score from the Anna game is, so I was like, okay, so I'll start with Aubrey, because I thought, okay, you know what, 42-0. Maybe we can. This is a game where, all right, Anna is just they're dominant. They're just better. And this is Anna's year to go win state. And that, I think that could very well be the case. But Anna didn't put, I was reading some of the scores, and I was like, wow, that's not a lot of offensive touchdowns. And then I saw how many turnovers there were for Aubrey, and it was like 3 turnovers and
3 fumbles.
And I saw, and then negative 41 yards rushing for the quarterback. And I was like, oh, this is really terrifying. This is not what I had thought Aubrey, and overall, it's like nobody had a monster night for Aubrey, obviously when you lose 42-0, no one's gonna have a monster night, but no one had like an efficient night or anything really. And just, everything that could have gone wrong, it seems like went wrong. And then it's that second quarter, 21 points unanswered for Anna, the Coyotes, in that second quarter. And if you're Aubrey, I think the most worrisome thing is, in general, their offense isn't really designed, because it's so run focused. They're not really built for a multi-touchdown comeback of any kind.
Yeah.
And
you got to play even or ahead with that style.
the fact that they fell behind and it was so fast and so sudden, it makes me worry that once like when they play an opponent, maybe not even Anna's caliber, but if any, uh, just kind of more even with themselves, that it could be over really quick. And so that's where I'm a little worried as someone who really loves what Aubrey kind of has to offer and the players they
Mhm.
have. So
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, as you said, looking at the box score, for one, it wasn't Brock Temple who was at the quarterback. It was Anthony Brumley. So don't know what the story is there, and so
yeah,
I'll
that's
have
a
to
good point.
reach out to Keith Ivey to see, is he hurt? Was it just a change of direction in terms of quarterback play? But Brumley didn't do well. Only 2 for 9 for 40 yards passing. But then you also noted the 5 rushing attempts for negative 41 yards. I feel like that's an error somewhere.
I
It
hope because
unless it was like a huge like a bad snap, and then it was a
that's
fumble that
okay.
got kicked behind or something like that. One play could do that. But if he dropped back 5 times to pass and he got sacked every time, or 5 other times, and got sacked on those attempts, that's worrisome. Obviously, Emerson Cagle only went for 44 on 12 attempts. There's a lot of just concern from Aubrey's offensive perspective. So their stock is way down to me. And we already talked about Argyle just getting their doors blown off against another ranked team, losing at home 42-14 to Lovejoy. They won this game last year on the road. And then it comes back against them this year. So they're 0-2 as well. It seems like things mirrored from week 1 against Melissa. The defense struggled to get the Leopards off the field. They were down 35-0 at halftime. Gave up 500 yards of offense to Lovejoy. So it was just not a great night overall for Argyle and Anna. And I'm sure those fans are maybe in panic mode right now. Like, what's happening to our team this year? We were expected to be contenders, and they very, very well might be playoff teams by the end of the regular season. But you have to wonder, how far are they going to go just based off of what we're seeing on the early returns.
Yeah, so like with Argyle, I think this is a team. And so in the Dallas Morning News article, Coach Rogers said that, they still have their aspirations of going and winning state, which I think they should, just based on the program and the success that Coach Rogers has had. That makes sense. I think if you're a fan, it's hard. I don't know that I would say, let's slam the panic button. I think if I'm in Aubrey, I'm a little more worried. If I'm in, a Chaparral fan, I'm a little more worried, just because the fact that the defensive line, like those positions and things that were supposed to be your strong point, it felt like that fell apart really quickly. And then obviously in Argyle, you have a very long tenured track record of success, and losing obviously your first home game in 11 years, that sucks.
Yeah.
And like, that's terrible and in such a bad fashion, but you did lose to that Lovejoy team is
Yeah.
just loaded. You
Mm-hmm.
lost to Melissa. I think there's still a lot of room for improvement. It's a young team, and you have Coach Rogers, who is so good at what he does. By the end of the year, this team could look completely different. And I'm not saying that they're going to go win state, but they could make a pretty deep run and just give some and ruin somebody else's season. They could be that
Yeah.
team. That's
That,
the
that,
team that they might be.
That's very possible. That's very possible. Again, it's just because of the level of excellence that Argyle had been operating
Mhm.
at for many years. That's where I think the panic does come in. It's just like,
That makes
what is
sense.
happening here in Argyle, Texas? We're supposed to be 2-0 and beating everybody and blowing doors off them, and it's the exact opposite. So it's
Yeah.
just that's where I think
I think the
the
bump to 5A is, you just have to remember when you get bumped to 5A, you're going to run when you open the season with 2 of the top 5A teams, it's a little different because those top 5A teams, they're going to be like, you're going to have,
yeah.
you might have 4 or 5 3 to 5-star recruits like Melissa and Lovejoy. Like those guys, like every player on those teams, it feels like is going to be going on to play at some level of FBS football. I mean, they're just stockpiling dudes. It's
Yeah, for sure.
like,
And then it's just also, again, you wouldn't have not expected at this point in the season. Again, it's still really early.
oh yeah. And it's more to me. It's the way they lost. It's not them being 0-2. I'm shocked they're 0-2. It's the manner of which they lost that is just has me like agape. Where I'm like, whoa.
Yeah,
I've never because I don't remember I've ever seen an Argyle team lose like that ever.
right.
Like,
And then you also just kind of look at the standings. Again, still early, but it's like, would you have ever guessed Denton High would be above Argyle at any point in the regular season? I sure wouldn't have. 1-1 I could have expected for Denton, but 2-0 or 1-1 was the floor I thought Argyle would be at this year. So it's just interesting to see where we're at. And then the last one in terms of stock down in the area is just Marcus, man. It's a rough go for those Marauders right now as well. Another bad loss to start the year in year one for Coach Mike Alexander. A lot of talent transferred out, graduated as well. It's just there's a lot of teams that we can say about that in the Denton County area, and I think Marcus kind of highlights that of like, it's going to be a long year, and it doesn't seem like a lot of bright spots potentially for this year, or even get into the playoffs. And again, very knee-jerk reaction, and I hate to bury a team this early, but two bad losses in a row. Just, we talked about it. One week is correctable. 2 weeks, you're starting to see a trend. And if it manifests again for a third week in a row, then that's what you are. So we'll see. They've got time, but another bad loss. This one to not Lake Highlands. They lost to South Lake Carroll.
This week was South Lake Carroll, and then Trinity's next week they play.
Yeah, and they hung tough with them early on. It was surprising to see the score, and then it just I don't know what happened in the second half for Marcus. But it was another bad loss and a lot of offense given up. So we'll see. They've got Trinity. This was again a battle of 0-3 teams last year. It's going to be, or 0-2 teams, I think, in week 3 last year. And I think we're looking at it again this year. So we'll see. I would have never guessed going into the 2022 through 2024 realignment that Marcus and Trinity would be 0-2 each year heading into their week 3 matchups. But here we are. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's like one of the most weird things to hear is like 2 times Marcus and Trinity play each other, and neither time is it really that exciting of a matchup. Like I was at the game last year, and I was like, man, this feels like a game where one of these teams is going to come out on top, and it's going to rejuvenate the season. And I think I've blanked on who won that game, because it was the most, like, I left the game feeling worse about both teams because it was like a 21-20 game, and it was like this close game that I could not have cared less about because they both played pretty poorly outside of one player, which was the Trinity running back who graduated last year.
Yeah, Ollie Gordon.
Yeah, and he played really well, and he was exciting to watch. And then Marcus had the one receiver, Ashton Kozart.
Yep.
I think that's
Kozart. They went to Stanford.
Oh, Stanford. Okay, I thought he was going to Oregon. And those two guys were exciting to watch, but like Cole Welliver didn't play particularly well that night. But like there were a couple players that were exciting to watch, but that game overall was just they were not the heavy hitters of 10 years ago.
For sure, yeah. And Marcus did win that one last year, so Welliver had a decent game going for 225 to lead them to a 30-20.
Okay, I could not remember. I just remember it being the most boring game of my life. No, I don't mean to be mean to those teams. It's like sure. I love both those programs. I grew up like being in like middle school. I remember going and watching Marcus and like seeing Euless Trinity play. And it's like when Geyer played Marcus, it's like that game mattered so much because it's like they're near each other, and it's like Marcus has this like kind of had this allure at the time. because they were still a powerhouse in almost every single sport. They were not a one, like just a football program or something. It was every one of them.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Yeah, so we'll see for both of those teams how it goes in week 3. But again, stock down, Marcus. Just you know,
sucks.
I figured they would be a middle of the pack type team, but right now they're trending straight down. So we'll see if they can correct themselves
I hope they do
next week. But on the bright side, we'll go look at some stock up. We already talked about Flower Mound and where they're at and winning convincingly 2 weeks in a row, or winning convincingly last night against Lake Highlands, and eking out the win against Fossil Ridge. Is that who they played in week 1? I can't remember.
Yeah, Fossil Ridge was week 1.
Yep. But another team I think stock up is Lake Dallas. Now they started off hot last year, but they didn't have the defensive prowess that we have seen their first 2 weeks. Now, and I know Coach Jason Young took exception to me saying this, but they've played some inferior teams this week. Not to say that they're bad. I think it's what has been evident against Greenville, and then against Centennial last on Thursday, that Lake Dallas was the better team, and they showed it. With a 38-7 win and then a 41-3 win or something like that. So yeah, they corrected whatever issues they were having in that first drive against Centennial, and then they just blew the brakes off of them. So I'm really impressed, and they didn't need Bortnum to go crazy either. They have the two-headed monster and Brockle and or Rochelle or whatever. I can't remember what his last name is, and then McAfee going for a combined 200 some odd yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns. So really good performance out of Lake Dallas, and we'll talk a little bit more in the games that we saw this week. But stock up for Lake Dallas.
Yeah. Only note to kind of add is just it's good to see that Bortnam didn't have to, like you said, didn't have to do a whole bunch. He just kind of was efficient, and I like that in a quarterback win. It's always good when it's like, hey, I don't have to do a whole lot. Just like when you can have one part of the game that's just so good, and your quarterback that's supposed to be the guy can just kind of, and he's able to do it without any problem, and just pick up whenever he did drop back to make a throw, he nailed it. I mean, if he had to make that long throw to pick up the first down, he did it. Like it was no problem, no skin off his back. So.
Yeah, that goes to the exact opposite of what I was just kind of trying to say about Ethan Terrell for Louisville. It's like we don't need him to be an all-world quarterback, but I would like to see a little bit more proficiency. And
that's okay. That makes more sense. Gotcha.
And Cade Bortnam was that he was proficient. They didn't ask him to do a lot. They didn't ask him to throw it 40 yards down the field every time he dropped back. He picked his spots. He had a decent game as a quarterback. So that's kind of what I was alluding to, and but solid win for Lake Dallas. I cannot remember who they played next. Princeton. So I think that'll be a good one and a better test for Lake Dallas moving forward. Another one, Braswell. Good bounce back and a solid win over. Who do they play? Why am I blanking now? There's too many games to remember.
Oh, this was Fossil Ridge.
Yes, Fossil Ridge. Thank you. So a 34-point win over Fossil Ridge on Thursday night on the road. Got Kent Lasser's first win as the head coach. So just a good bounce back because things can spiral quickly in a football season. So for them to reverse course and show their prowess as an offense and be able to stop a team on defense is definitely a move in the right direction, or a positive change for them, as opposed to just kind of stewing in that not loser mentality, but just compounding the fact of losses.
Yeah, and I would just add that Coach Lassiter, he came in really late, similar to like Pilot Point. You see at Pilot Point, like they've had gotten off to a rocky start, which I think isn't like, if you're a Bearcat fan, like that's just kind of, it's tough when you're a coach and you show up super, super late, like right before the season. Braswell kind of similar situation, and it's awesome to see that it hasn't like I thought it might be an 0-2 situation for them, not because the players aren't good or they don't have high quality athletes and stuff. It's just you're learning a brand new system so late in the game, and for
Yep.
them to come out and play this well, you had 2 receivers with 80 some odd yards. Ramondo Izaguirre, great game. Braylon Strickland, great game. Nicholas Johnson, pretty solid. So
Yeah.
love seeing it, man.
For sure. And I think it's good to get that win and then have that positive momentum going toward their game against Byron Nelson, who we noted earlier. That offense is just there's no fall off from Jake Wilson to Tom Von Grote, who's got already 10 touchdowns in 2 games this year throwing. So he's setting the area on fire already. So it'll be fun to see how that goes down. I'm sure Nelson would be favored, but just good for Kent Laster and that Braswell team to put together a solid win over Fossil Ridge. And then last on our stock up, we don't really talk a lot about the smaller schools, but just good for Crum and Sanger to find ways to win last night, especially on the road. Those environments can get a little wheels off in terms of the 4A and below, and so to go into Ferris and to go into who did Crum
Crum
play?
Was Burke Bennett.
Burke Burnett, yeah. To go into those environments and pull out wins on the road and find a way to win close ones, kudos to them. So Canterford gets a win. And then Chad Rogers gets his first at Sanger. So, they're having to replace a lot of talent, and for that defense to find a way to hold Ferris down and then let the offense do its thing. Good. And same thing with Crum, a comeback win late over Burke Burnett. So that's our stock up and stock down for this week. Any other parting shots before we talk about the games we watched?
I don't think so, other than for like the small schools. I think it's definitely exciting to see Sanger kind of pull off an overtime win. Like anytime I see the smaller schools win on the road, kind of like you noted, I think that stands out more to me than when usually like the bigger schools win on the road. Like we talked about Louisville going to Highland Park, like that's a rowdy environment. Compared to, but those smaller schools, the smaller you get, almost the tougher it is to win on the road. Usually, like that more compact, because it's just everything kind of is pulled in a little bit more. It's almost like being in a basketball arena a little bit, where it's just there's no escaping, people yelling at you and whatever. Like you're gonna hear everything. So it's just I think winning on the road, like you said, it's just big. And then for Sanger, that's a team I think that is definitely playoff material. From last year, and I associate them with the playoffs, so I'm going to keep associating them with the playoffs. There's some people that went to high school out there, so
sure
bias. And then the Crum right here by Denton, so I love Crum.
Yep. So, and I think we're going to be going out to Crum next week.
I get the feeling we should, because got a little rivalry game coming up here pretty soon.
Yeah, well, I don't know so much of a rivalry. It's funny, these schools, Ponder hadn't been playing football for that long, but schools separated by 7 miles in traveling time, met for the first time last year. So it was I think it was a shootout. It's like 45-42 or something like that, with Ponder, or maybe like 56-54, something stupid. But Ponder pulled out that one with their high flying offense, and so that'll be week 2 for Ponder, who suffered a 20-19 loss to Dunbar on the road. So yeah, that'll be a good one to watch. Just the vibes of a smaller town game are always, I think, a little bit more frenetic and energetic. So I think that'll be fun to watch in Crum next week. All right, man. So to the games we watch, I'm gonna let you start it off with Lake Dallas and Centennial. You were on the field the entire game pretty much, and I just want to get your perspective of what you saw, and I'll kind of supply my own thoughts.
So for me, Lake Dallas and Centennial, Lake Dallas just feel is that team with has some kind of energy about it. And I don't know how to, it's that kind of unquantifiable thing of they just like, it's just they have those guys that know how to provide it. Like Henry. Oh gosh, I'm butchering his first name. Keondae Henry.
There you go.
Sorry, man.
You got it.
But like he seems like he's one of those guys that's just you can tell that everyone just loves and is kind of around. Uh, and he just brought like an energy to the sideline throughout the game, and everyone's just having like they're having fun. When obviously it's fun when you're kind of beating someone up. Like it's pretty like it's fun. Like when you're scoring a bunch of points and only giving up 3 points. But the defense had some guys like that. I can't think of names off the top of my head. And then Dylan Broccoli, Sam McAfee also felt like guys that had that. Like they were just slashing, dashing, and smashing their way to the end zone all game long. And like like that whole like the coaches, everyone just kind of was vibing off of that. And I think Coach Jason Young seems like the kind of guy that just his players just love him, and they're going to ride or die with him. And that's why I'm excited to see what those Falcons do throughout the rest of the season, because they're a fun team. Like I love it.
Yeah, when I was down there in the fourth quarter, there's a lot of high energy. Obviously, of course, you're already when I went up watching it from up top and then going down late when you're up 41-3 or 34-3 when I went down, and then Xavier Rodriguez houses a really awkward bounce punt to make it 41-3. But still, a lot of fun energy down there. That I just can't say enough about how well that defense has progressed from last year to this year. The offense is still, I think, doing what it did last year in terms of relying really well on its run game, which is their strong suit, and then picking them and choosing its moments with the passing game. That's not to say Bortnum can't throw it and sling it and tear up a defense, but when you've got two very complementary backs in Broccoli, sorry, and McAfee. That's what else do you need to do? So hopefully those two can stay, healthy all year and provide that balance. Because one is more of a hit the hole and bowl you over, and the other is a quick cut and try to avoid as much contact as possible, and it just works. It's that thunder and lightning type of vibe. So. Yeah, I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing with Lake Dallas. More, like I said, more so on the defensive side early on, and we'll see how that translates when it comes to district, because you're still going to have to mess with Argyle. You're still going to have to mess with Emerson, but the opportunity is there, I think, to maybe snag a second seed out of that 3-5A T2. So they just need to flip one game, I think, and that's very possible, I think, with Argyle. We'll just see how things progress moving forward.
And that Argyle games this year, it's at Lake Dallas, which I think that's a biggie for them. So because Argyle is another one of those, it's small venues that they pack. So.
Yep, but I think Argyle will travel well for that game too.
They will,
because it's not that far from Lake Dallas. So. Yeah, it should be.
The good thing for Lake Dallas is it's not going to be. I haven't been to Lake Dallas in years. I don't think that they're going to have people in the end zone out on lawn chairs and stuff.
No, probably not. It's a little bit
that'll
bigger,
help a little bit
for sure. But yeah, no, we'll see how that goes moving forward for Lake Dallas. I'm encouraged. So again, I'm really high on them right now. I think they're playing exceptionally well. So. I can't really say anything else other than what you've mentioned. So that brings us to last night's game. Like we said, it was a, who has the ball last type of game. It started like it was going to be a defensive struggle, and then it absolutely did not turn into a defensive struggle.
The opposite of that.
Yeah, it was. I think it was in 24 minutes. Well, I mean, hell, in 36 minutes of 36 minutes of action from the second quarter to the final gun, we saw 92 points. So that's 30 some odd points a quarter without scoring anything in the first quarter. So it definitely turned into just a Tecmo Bowl, who's gonna score last type of thing, and kudos
Just real life
to what's up.
So it was real life Madden. If you were seeing some of the catches and stuff, it felt like there were glitches. Some of the plays.
Oh yeah, like Trace. I can't remember his last name, but Trace number 11, I think for Alito, laid out, shielding the defender with one arm, and then
Yeah.
cradling on a diving catch with the other. It was a fantastic catch. I mean, Josiah Martin's bailout touchdown from McLaughlin when he was scrambling, he just weaseled his way in between two defenders and caught the ball right at the goal line for a touchdown.
Yep.
I mean, it was a fantastic game offensively, and shout out to Alito for that 4-minute drive when Geyer. This was the annoying part. So Geyer's down 8. I start to pack up and leave and head down to the press or to the field, and then McLaughlin finds Glasgow for a 60-some-odd yard touchdown, which then ties the game after the 2-point conversion. So I missed that. That was fun. But then Alito gets the ball last and milks the clock for the last 4:07 for that 21-yard game-winning field goal. And that's what state championship teams do. They find a way to win. It could have been it could have been another 2 possessions potentially. They could have scored quick and given Geyer their ball back, and they milked it. They made the clutch plays late to sustain that drive, 13-play, 91-yard drive, and yeah, I didn't really care who won. It was just fun to watch and be part of.
Yeah, I will say I was a little bummed.
Oh yeah, why is that?
I may have graduated from Geyer.
Yeah, you might have graduated from Geyer. Yeah, for sure. No, it's
I may be more biased than you have a little bit more of a journalism background. I do not, and I don't care.
A little bit. Yeah, they definitely beat that out of you pretty quickly with the no cheering in the press box or press area type of stuff.
I'm not on the press box. I'll cheer all I want.
Yeah, that's for sure. But no, it was just a fun game. It's tough that one has to lose.
I know. I feel bad because it is high school football, and I just love watching these kids play. Man, some of them they're just so good, and I like watching them, and it's fun.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Like Haas Hingy, it was an incomplete pass. There's one ball that he just uncorked one. I was back behind him. I swear it looked like he threw it 80 yards because I don't even know if he was throwing it to someone.
Yeah.
The arm on that guy.
Yeah, Haney, man, he came along from last year because when they played Geyer last year, he looked a little bit like a deer in headlights, and that was a really vaunted Geyer defense. But I think from that moment on, we saw him blossom into a state championship leading quarterback, and I would have never guessed that the kid would have be a TCU commit, and here he is leading Alito to a solid win over Geyer. Yeah, the kid has come a long way since last year. But a couple notes on Geyer. The offense is definitely nothing to worry about.
No, not at all.
McLaughlin is that guy for them. That's kind of what Reed Heim mentioned to us last night. He didn't start last week, but then he came along and played pretty well against Rockwall Heath. But then he showed last night that he's that guy. He's a really aw shucks, soft-spoken kid. I kind of love that. Just the theory of the uncluttered mind, where I'm just out here playing some football and having fun with my friends, and let's do this. And he made play after play through the air. I would like to see a little bit more results coming from the running back. And I think when they get Trey Joyner back, I think that'll be helpful. They just need something more to kind of get that running game over the top. And also slow starts. Just last thing I want to say is slow starts. I don't know what it is about Geyer and slow starts. It happened with Walsh. It happened with Webb. And now it's happening under Heim. You would like to see that offense just kicking into high gear from the jump and put their foot on their opponent's throats.
Yeah, the slow start thing, it's definitely another worrisome thing because we talked about it in the preview show. It makes it hard to win games. Like when you're in a tight game like that, you score. obviously giving up those big balls, the big plays and stuff like that's not great. But if you score 7 points early, those big plays don't really hurt you nearly as much because that's 7 points. Like, get on top early. Like, don't leave any wiggle room. Make the other two guys play catch up.
Yeah, for sure.
It feels like you're always in this catch up state. You're playing in a tight game because it wasn't clicking early. And like, you don't have room for that when you play DeSoto. You don't have room for that when you play Alito. You don't have, and that's the part that's a little bit frustrating. And it goes back to it feels like they're reliant on that defense. And it wears your defense down. Like, at some point, like, your defense isn't, like, it's not invincible. Like, this is not an NFL defense playing against high school kids. It's a high school defense playing against high school kids.
Yeah, for sure. So. And that's something Heim addressed to his team afterward, is that he said it. Our offense is fine. I mean, I'm kind of eavesdropping from 10 yards away as he's addressing the team. He's like, our offense is fine. Look at the scoreboard. We've got to fix our defense, and that's going to come through time. But we've got to get it fixed. And they lost a lot of players, but they still have some players too. So, they got Lancaster next week, and then it's Prosper to open district, and those are no slouches. And the more I see of Prosper and what's happening elsewhere in the district, the more I'm convinced that they could be district champions. We'll see. Could be a catastrophic injury that happens, but Geyer has a lot of challenges ahead, and it's very possible we could see them be 0-1 to start district if they don't right the defensive ship come Prosper time.
Yeah, I think that's the game that's going to be, I think, the most challenging for them probably in district. I think
them and McKinney.
Right? Oh yeah, and McKinney. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, because it feels like Allen's kind of fallen off a little bit this year. In a significant way actually. And then McKinney's pretty loaded. Feels more like on the defensive side though than anything. So I don't know though, that if that game turns into a low scoring battle, I don't know who that would favor. Because if Trey Joyner's back, then Geyer I feel like is a little bit more suited to that kind of game.
Yep.
McKinney might struggle if that turns into a shootout, though. McKinney could be in a little bit of a hurt for that type of play style. And then but Prosper's well-rounded, and that's where that game gets a little scary. And I think Lancaster will be a good test for Geyer, a good litmus test, because Lancaster is, they're always going to have some they have athletes and stuff, and they're going to go make big plays, or they're capable of it. So.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I lost where my mute mic button was. But yes, 100% agree. So, not all is lost for Geyer after losing to Alito, but there's definitely some areas to improve. And as we both mentioned, that running game, I think, just needs to find its footing, for lack of a better term. And hopefully the re-addition of Trey Joyner whenever he comes back does that. So, but yeah, man, it was an exciting game. There's not more you can say. Back and forth. No team had a bigger lead than 8, and yeah, it was highly enjoyable from all vantage points. Whether you're watching it on stream, if you have that subscription, or you were there in person in the press box, on the sideline, in the stands, whatever. It was just a highly enjoyable game, and I would love to watch that every week, regardless of the outcome. I love when our teams blow out teams, the opponents, but at the same time, I want to see something that has you on the edge of your seat, and you can't write or come up with your action cuts until the game is over, because you don't know how it's going to end until that last moment. So.
Yeah, I won't complain about getting to see that in person and stuff. It's just a blast. So.
All right, man. We're coming up on our hour. I got some top performers. Is there any other things that you want to?
No, man. Go ahead. I think it's time for us to get into Steven's Players of the Week.
Well, yeah, these are just top performers based off of the stats I saw elsewhere that I was able to kind of cull together. And we've already mentioned him once before, but Logan McLaughlin, we mentioned him again for Geyer, 314 passing yards, 5 touchdowns. I thought he had 6 last night. I don't know where the 6th one came up in my head, but 5 touchdown passes. He was so far in the area, the high man in passing yards. So a strong performance for him, for that senior quarterback. Number 2 on the list is Raimundo Izaguirre for Braswell. He was 1 of 2 with Braylon Strickland, but he had a pretty good performance for Braswell, and racking up 144 yards and a touchdown against Fossil Ridge. We've already mentioned him before as well. We're going to mention him again for Lake Dallas. Dylan Brockle, with 143 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. He was unstoppable with that duo of Sam McAfee on Thursday night. So kudos to him. Brennan Meyer, 300 passing yards and 4 touchdowns for Wakeland. They won easily. They've got a fun matchup, I think, next week against Frisco Lone Star. I think we're going to be at that game as well at Toyota Stadium. So there are 2 teams that the Denko Gridiron had identified as potential district champs at a 6-5 D1, and it's heading that way, and they lead that district play off next week. And then the last one is the duo of Corbin Glasgow and Josiah Martin with 17 catches combined for 174 yards and 4 touchdowns. They were making catch after catch. It was fun. Josiah got that offense initiated with his big catches and touchdowns, and it was just good energy, good vibes all around for that duo when the ball was headed their way. They made play after play, and so made Logan look really good. And you can't have good receivers without a good quarterback, and you can't have a good quarterback without good receivers. And Geyer has a trio there that is definitely going to benefit them this year.
Yep, I can't say anything else about those guys. I mean, all those guys were players of the week, and they were awesome. You just kind of look at the back score. There's obvious. If you have any submissions that you'd like to tell us about for players of the week or coaches, fans, anybody, feel free to hit us up here at info@dincogridiron.com. You can also find us on our socials. This is our handle, Dinco Gridiron. That's all of our socials: Insta, Facebook, Twitter, X, all of it. Whatever, find us on something. You can find Steven over here.
On Twizzlers or X, whatever your preference of that is. That I am Speeders on Twitter. And then you, sir, are our Denton anime.
Our resident anime fan here. Yeah. Space Cowboy, Lee Livingston, either one, it'll probably come up on Twitter. Sure. Space Cowboy, definitely it'll come up on Insta. So
yeah, and coaches, definitely, if you're watching, submit those defensive players of the week nominations. I usually have about 3 or 4 who normally send, and I don't want to have to keep relying on all of those teams every week for defensive players of the week, but I will. So get those in. I'll be reaching out to the coaches this later this weekend to get either their offensive stats if they're not readily available, as well as their defensive stats, which are never available. So, I want a good collection of players to choose from each and every week. And so either Steven at Denko Gridiron or info at Denko Gridiron, you can send that stuff in. We've already got a couple from the coaches I regularly get them from, so I appreciate that. So yeah, man, we're off to week 3. Week 2 concludes today at 1:00 with Frisco Legacy and Arlington Oak Ridge at the Star. That was an exciting game last year when I visited it. I will not be in person this year though, but we'll see, man. Last thoughts before we head out.
Go watch some college football, have some fun. Get putting the horns up.
I put this on the Reddit sub. I said I will happily take Texas losing every game if we can beat the brakes off Oklahoma at the Red River shootout like we did last year. So hook them.
Oh man. All righty. You know what? On that note, send us whatever you get. If you got recommendations on games we should go to or anything else, anything you want to let us know, just let us know. That's all I got, guys.